All right, so today we're going to start working with Revit. So on your desktop of your computer, you should either see the Revit 2020 icon, big R with Revit 2020, or you can go to your Start menu and just type in Revit, and the Revit 2020 app should show up. Either way, you should start it. It does take a little while for the program to start. So while we wait here, if you look on the Google Classroom, you can see links for how to download a version of Revit onto your personal computer at home if you prefer to work on it at home as well. I will be providing and producing videos that will support all the Revit work we're going to do this year. So you'll be able to work in class as well as at home. All right, so this is what Revit looks like when it starts opening up. You see you have a number of quick icon things up here at the top. You have these tabs here, file, architecture, structure, all that. That's once you open up a file. Once you get working, you might start seeing a recent files list populate. If not, it might be blank. Whenever you start a new file, you click on New. We're always going to be working in the architectural template. All right, so make sure it's not in the default is construction template. Make sure that you select architectural template, then OK, and it will make a new file for you. As I was saying earlier, you have all these tabs at the top: architecture, structure, steel, systems, insert, annotate, analyze, mass, and collaborate, view, manage, add-ons, modify. The ones we will primarily use is architecture, occasionally annotate, massing and site, view, and modify. You should always see your properties browser and your project browser on the left-hand side. If those go away, for example, if you open up your program and it doesn't show up right away, or if it's gone, you click on the X's. The way you get it back, you click on the View tab. On the far right side, User Interface, you just select Project Browser and Properties menu. All right, it's really important that you always have that there. Whenever you start a new program or a new file, they will always pre-populate with two levels, level 1, level 2. You should rename them. So right-click, rename, and call it floor or first floor if you're going to have more than one. You always link rename corresponding level and views, yes. And you'll see that down here, the ceiling plan will auto-update to the new name as well. That means whatever you put on the floor plan will also be linked to the ceiling plan. That's a really important feature of Revit. Please make sure you always click yes. Here, we will change this, and we'll do ceiling. And again, link it. All right. So that's some of the basics. Whenever we start working, you're in the architecture tab again. So the first thing you start building with are walls. You kind of work your way from left to right. So you start building walls. And typically when you first start in Revit, you have a generic 8-inch wall. If you click on the down tab, there's some pre-made walls for us. You have some interior walls, some exterior walls, and then some just regular generic walls. So if you look at the project description page for our project, I'll pull that up real quick. So it's the Utility Shed version 1. Oops, wrong folder. So if we look there, it is right here. You'll see that we need walls that are 12 foot by 16 foot. So that's the area of our shed. 8 foot high walls, and then the exterior walls are 1/2-inch vinyl siding with house wrap, 1/2-inch sheathing, 3.5-inch stud, and a vapor barrier, and then a gypsum wallboard. All right, this stuff here, the siding, the house wrap, and the sheathing, that's on the outside. The stud is considered to be the center of the core, and then on the inside is the vapor barrier and the gypsum wallboard. So if we go back here and we select one of these exteriors, if you choose one with a metal stud, it'll be closer to what we're working with. I'm going to do this EIFS on metal stud, and then I'm going to edit that. So that's as close as we're going to get to what we're looking for. So we're going to duplicate it and call it exterior siding on wood stud. And then we are going to click edit. So currently it's this EIFS exterior insulation. That's 3 inches thick. That's not what we want. We want to change that from this EIFS exterior insulation to vinyl siding. So to change the material type, you click on the 3 dots right here, and it brings up the material browser. So you can search through and see if you can find vinyl siding. It's all, what's it called? It's all alphabetical. So you go to the bottom where V is. You don't see any vinyl siding. So we have to create a vinyl siding. If the material isn't in this list already, you have to make a new material. So you click on this circle with a plus sign, and we're going to create a new material. You see it's by default, it's default new material. So you go to the identity, change it to vinyl siding. We're going to describe it as 1/2-inch vinyl siding. Graphics, this changes the way it kind of looks in a plan view. So like when we're putting in a floor plan, if it's enough to show up, we'll change it. So you click on the foreground where it's currently none. I'm going to change that to horizontal small. Say OK. And then appearance, this is what it looks like when it's actually rendered in our 3D view that Revit offers. Currently, it's a boring type gray. That's by default. So to change that, you say replace this asset. It brings up this asset browser. You can make it a lot bigger. And this is where we need to go to the appearance library, click the down arrow here. And if we go to siding, you can scroll down into, the easiest one, or the one that we're looking for. If it's your typical vinyl siding you see on the side of a house, any of these will work. Horizontal 4-inch, gray, white, beige. I'm just going to choose the beige is a slightly brownish color. Gray is obviously a gray color. I'll put a little color into it. So the beige, and if you double click on it, oops, that's what I want. Double click on it, or click over here, this arrow here. And now it shows up right there. So click apply, OK. So now our material has switched to vinyl siding. The thickness is not correct. It's currently 3 inches. We want a 1/2 inch. All right. Thermal air layer, 2 inches. We do not have that. So if you have a layer that you have by mistake, you can click on the number over here, highlight the whole row, click delete. Oh, one thing I forgot to mention, the top here is the outside. So pretend this is the outside and we're working our way into the house. So we have our vinyl siding, our membrane air infiltration layer, that's our house wrap, which you might call Tyvek or DuPont. And then the substrate, that's the plywood sheathing. Currently they say it's 3/4 inch. We would, you can use 3/4 inch. Some contractors do, others use 1/2 inch, just depends. We'll just use a 1/2 inch. Structural layer, this is the currently by default they have a metal stud layer. We want to change it to a wood stud layer, our 2x4 wood. So again, you click on the 3 dots to change it. You go towards the bottom because that's where wood would be alphabetically. There is no wood stud. They have a wood stained. So we're actually going to use that and modify it. So we can click the circle with a plus sign. Instead of creating a brand new material, we can duplicate this. And we can duplicate this and change it from metal stud to wood stud and call it just wood stud class. Let's change it to wood. Graphics, we'll keep it as the something didn't quite work here. Let's cancel all this. Let's try it again. So we wanted to go to the wood stained. Make sure you've selected the wood stained. Duplicate selected material. There we go. That's what we're looking for. So wood, stud, graphics. keep the same. Appearance, keep the same. Click apply. Click, okay. So now it's wood stud. All right, so we are continuing on. We have made our exterior siding on wood stud. So now we can actually start making our walls. So again, make sure it's basic wall exterior siding on wood stud. And then something to note is that when you build something in Revit, you can go from the bottom up or from the top down. We want to make sure that we're on the first floor plan. Yep, always save. So you should save on your USB drive or on your U drive. I'm going to save my U drive, CEA, a folder with my name, and we'll call it the CEA Utility Shed. Utility Shed. You see I've already started one, V1, and then this is just a demo for the video. All right. And once that saves, so make sure you're on the first floor plan. And wall, so basic wall exterior siding on wood stud. Height means that it's going from the bottom up. The other option is depth, meaning from the top down. We will do that with a foundation wall, but normally we'll go from the bottom up, from the floor up to the ceiling. Currently, the height of the wall is set to unconnected 20 feet. So if you just go out and start drawing walls, I'm just drawing some random walls now. Once you're done, you hit escape. Once you hit escape enough times, you see it goes back to the regular mouse. So here's my walls. All right. It's hard to see what the height is unless you go to either the 3D view, that little house button icon right up here. Again, that doesn't really tell us what the actual height of our house is. So if you actually go to the elevation plan over here, you see that the ceiling is 10 feet high, which is actually an issue. We haven't corrected that. But the walls go way up high. That's because when we built the walls, go back to the first floor plan, click on a wall, you see that it is unconnected 20 feet. We made some walls that are 20 feet tall. It's way too big for what we're making. So let's highlight them, delete them. Those were wrong. So let's go back to the wall and let's actually connect them to the ceiling. All right. So let's do that again. And we're just making 4 walls. Hit escape to get out of the command. And let's again go to 3D view. You can see kind of from the 3D view that it's a little bit smaller, but you really want to check. Go to any one of the elevations on the project browser, east, north, south, or west, doesn't matter. They're all the same. The ceiling height is 10 feet, and now you see that the walls only went up to the ceiling height. Well, if you notice, again, going back to our project description, our walls should only be 8 foot high, not 10 foot high. So we need to correct that. So in any one of your elevations, doesn't matter which one, east, north, south, west, whatever, zoom in over here and double click on the 10 and change the 10 to an 8. You see how it dropped the ceiling height a little bit, and you scroll over and you see that the walls also already adjusted. Again, that's the whole point. One of the big advantages of Revit is that things auto update when you do stuff like that. So go back to the first floor plan and then click on one of your walls. So you'll see that when I made my wall, I started in this top right corner and I went counterclockwise around. Well, that put the outside of my wall on the inside. So I'll go to 3D view. You see that the siding is on the inside of my structure. So that's backwards. There's 2 ways to correct that. The best way to correct it is to not draw your walls counterclockwise, but go clockwise. So I'll do that real quickly somewhere else. So if I had made my walls this way, you'll see, and again, once you're done, escape out a bunch of times, go to 3D view. The second one automatically made my walls correct. But if you go back to the first floor plan, if you want to just correct the mistake rather than just making it all new again, you click on the wall and you see this double arrow. That shows where the outside of the wall is. If you click on it, it flips the wall. So go back to 3D view. So now you see, and the way you can pan or orbit around is hold down Shift and then push down on the wheel of the mouse. You can pan around, and now you see that the siding's on the outside of that wall. So we're going to do that with all the others. So just click, click on the wall, click on the double arrow, click on the wall, click on the double arrow. And then again, go to 3D view. Now you see the sidings on the outside of all of my walls. All right, so go back to your first floor plan, zoom in on one of your walls, and you see that you might see some thicker lines. So you might see this, some really thick lines. It's better for us to see a lot more detail. So if this is what you currently see, the button I click to change that is this one right up here called thin lines. So just click that, it makes it thinner lines. But we also want to see a lot more detail. We should be able to see the wall section, meaning like the stud, at least the thickness of the stud, the what's it called? The thickness of the drywall and the sheathing and the siding. So the way you change the setting to see that is this button down here, detail level. It's currently set to coarse. Click on it and select fine. All right. I am noticing one issue though. I think I forgot to change my stud layer. So the thickness of my stud layer. So let's go back very quickly and click on any of the walls. Click, make sure it's siding, wood stud, edit type. Yeah, I forgot back to change the wood stud to 3.5 inches because a 2x4 really is not 4 inches wide, it's 3.5 inches wide. Click OK. So now that's the thickness that it should be. Click OK. And all my walls, again, will auto update. All right. So all the walls now have the correct thickness and all the correct materials. Now we're good to go. All right. One more thing. When I created the walls, so if you highlight all the walls, when we made them in such a way that the best way to explain this is let's just recreate the walls again. So hit delete. You'll see in the project description that the 12-foot by 16-foot dimension should be the outside edge of the stud to the outside edge of the stud. So what I mean by that, let's go back to wall. And so we've changed we made sure that we're building from the top up. It's connected to the ceiling height. But what we want to do is for the dimensions, we want to, instead of do the wall center line, we want to do the exterior core of face. All right, the exterior core, core being the stud, that's the core of the wall, right? That's the structural support of the wall. We want to go from outside edge of the stud to outside edge of the stud. That's the way it's typically done in construction. All right, so if you click on that, that will now make our walls the way we want to. So zoom out a little bit. Remember, go clockwise around to just kind of save us the need to have to readjust or reorient the walls. I made it any old dimension. I didn't really pay attention yet. So let's go ahead. Now that we have our walls, they're the correct height. Let's actually make sure that they're the correct dimensions too. So the way we put in a dimension is this button up here. I clicked on it already, the align dimension. And if I want to dimension this wall here, I don't actually click on this wall. I click on the wall from here to here. And again, if you zoom in, you see that I have the wrong dimension on there. All right, so hit escape. Don't put that dimension in. Try to click dimension again. And what I want to do is I want to dimension, again, from here, faces of core. So what I want to do again is from the outside stud to the outside stud. All right, so from here, I want to make sure I choose from that stud, the outside of that stud, to the outside of this set of studs. That's the thickness I care about. All right, and then again, from the outside of that stud to the outside of this stud. There you go. So you see the dimensions currently are too big. It's supposed to be 12 by 16. It's currently 24 by 32, so we can adjust that. It's actually oddly enough twice as big as it needs to be. So I want to change this dimension here. That's 24 feet. Again, instead of, this is something unique about Revit, instead of clicking on this wall to change this dimension, what I do is I want to move this wall up closer to that wall, or this wall closer down to this wall. It doesn't matter which one, I just want to change this dimension. So I click on one of the other walls. So I click on this wall, and then I click on the 24-foot dimension, type in 12, and hit enter. So now from outside edge of that stud to outside edge of this stud is exactly 12 feet, which is what I want. All right, I want to change this dimension. So again, you choose either this wall or this wall. I'll just choose this wall and click on the 32-foot dimension, make it 16. So now I have exactly what I'm looking for. I can just click off or check off. I have 12 foot by 12 foot by 16 foot outside edge of stud to outside edge of stud. I have an 8-foot wall. Currently I have 4 exterior walls that are exactly like this. So I do need to change one of my walls to this brick pattern. All right. So let's go ahead and do that. So again, I'm going to need to change my wall. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller just so I can kind of see what's going on here. So that's my reference. So let's see, I need brick. So I go wall, change it to brick on wood stud. All right, so let's just choose one of the brick on metal studs and let's change that. So edit, duplicate it, brick on wood stud, edit the type, and let's see. So 3 5/8 inch brick common, that's already there. 3-inch air gap, that's already there. House wrap, that's already there. 1/2 inch sheathing, so plywood sheathing's already there. Just need to change the thickness from 3/4 to 1/2 inch. Currently it's a metal stud, so I want to swap that out for a wood stud. Remember, I made that earlier, so I can just use it now. Say okay, and it should not be 6 inch, it should be 3.5 inch. And then vapor barrier gypsum wallboard. Okay, so that one was almost exactly what I wanted. Just needed to change a few thicknesses and one material. Say okay. Let's bring this in. All right, say okay. And I want to swap out the wall. So if I select this wall, I'll just change this wall. I just click on that wall and then click on brick on metal on wood stud. There we go. Okay. So now I've got my 4 walls, 3 of them, the siding, vinyl siding, and 1 of them brick. Now I want to put in a floor. All right. So if I'm in my architecture tab, I have, whoops, wrong button. There we go. Walls. We'll put in doors and windows later and components later. We're not doing columns. We'll do a roof later. We're going to do a floor really quickly. All right. So floor, same idea as the walls. They have some generic floors in there. So click on the down arrow. So there's 3-inch lightweight concrete on 2-inch metal deck, generic 12-inch, generic 12-inch filled, lightweight concrete on metal deck. So we're just gonna choose, let's just start with a generic 12-inch filled, edit the type, duplicate it and say 4-inch concrete. Say okay, default thickness. So all we need to do is change the material to nothing right now and click on the 3 arrows and just find concrete. So go up, up, up. Concrete precast, nope, that's something that's a little bit different. We want concrete cast in place. So if you're doing something at your on a job site where you get a concrete truck pull up, which is very common, it's cast in place concrete. So use that, say okay, and then change it from 1 foot thick to 4 inches thick. So change it to 4. And if you just choose 4, enter, it assumes it's 4 feet. We don't want 4 feet of concrete. That would be way more than we need. So it's 4, and then make sure you use the quotation or the double tick mark for inches. Say enter. Now it's 4 inches thick. Say okay. So now we have a 4-inch concrete, 4-inch thick concrete floor. Say okay. And the way we choose the floor is we're just choosing the boundary line. All right. So it's going to say extend to wall core. And so we're just choosing the boundary lines of the existing walls that we've already made. So you say, click here, click here, click here, click here. So it's going to put in a concrete floor along the pink lines that just it auto-selected for us. All right. Click the green check mark to finish it, and there's our concrete floor. All right. We can go to 3D mode to kind of see what's happening right now. And again, you can kind of see there's a 4-inch thick concrete floor underneath of our structure. All right. And then we have a siding on 3 sides, and then brick on the 4th side. All right. So now we have walls and a floor. The next thing that we are supposed to do, oops, wrong one. The next thing we're supposed to do is a gable roof with a 512 roof pitch. Okay, so let's go back to our first floor plan. All right, and we want to put in a roof. All right, but in order to put in a roof, we don't want to put in a roof on the first floor. So now we're going to put the roof onto our building. So if you're currently on the first floor plan and you try to place a roof, you'll get an error message, a lowest level notice, because you don't ever want to place a roof on a first floor. It would only make sense that you put it on the second floor or whatever the uppermost floor of the building is. So in our case, since it's only a 1-floor shed, we're going to put it on the ceiling level. You see that the ground floor shows up grayed out. So what you do is you go to architecture. Oops, hold on. Let's X out of the one I tried to make already. So go to the ceiling floor plan, click on roof, and we're going to make a gable roof. So yours will probably show up as 0 overhang right now and defined slopes pre-checked. All right, so defined slopes, that's where the pitch of your roof comes from. So if you don't want a flat roof, you want a pitched roof. Here we said we want to do a 512 gable roof with a 1-foot overhang. All right, so gable means 2 sides are angled or pitched, 2 sides are not. So the 1-foot overhang is right here. You make that a 1 foot. All right, and architecture. So if you are not careful, you can put the 1-foot overhang on the wrong side, so the inside, and that's where that dotted line is. If you accidentally click here, you can change the side it's on by flipping it. And then the pitch right here, it's by default 912, so you change it to 512. Oops, 512. That didn't work. So 5 inches. Just change it. Just all you have to do is type in the number 5. All right, then you want this side also to be a 512. And then you don't want the other sides to be pitched, so you turn off defined slopes and then click on the other 2 sides. And Revit, again, does all the work for you. It's gonna, the outer edge of the roof is gonna be where the pink lines are. So that's all good. And if you accidentally went to the wrong tab, go back to the Modify Create Roof Footprint tab, and you click the green check mark, and you're good. It's the plan view of this. So if you want to see it in actuality, you look here, you go to the 3D view. But you'll notice if you pan around that the walls are not all touching the roof. All right, so we do need to fix that. The easiest way to fix it is in the 3D model right here. So if you need to select the walls, if you just select one, it's going to be hard. So instead of that, put your mouse over top of the wall. Just hover over top of it until it's the outline is highlighted in blue. Click the tab button. That selects all of the very similar features, so all the walls, then click. Now you've selected all of them at the same time. And then you see up here, you can say attach top/base. So what it's going to do, you see in the image right here, the wall, the first image to the left, that's the wall unconnected the way it is. Then you have to select, you see in purple, the outline of the roof is selected, so we have to select the roof. And then once we do that, the walls will go up. So click this, then select the roof, and just like it said, the walls are now all attached to the roof. And that's the same way all around the building. Okay, so now we have our shed. It's totally designed. This is only the first version, so we're not done with it. Obviously, there's no doors and windows, so that's what we're going to come to on the second version. But for now, we're ready to at least start thinking about putting this all onto a drawing sheet. So if you go over here on the properties, the project browser, scroll down to you see sheets, and you right click and you say new sheet. You see I already have this loaded just because I preloaded it, but the way you're going to have to find it, you go to load, click that button. Not exactly sure where yours is going to point you to, but it's probably not going to point you to the right place. So what you're going to need to do is go to the S drive. So click down the down arrow till you find the shared S drive. If this is a school computer, if it's on your home computer, it will probably point you in the right direction already. If you're on the school computer, you go to Maine East, Students, AAT, CEA, and then Revit Families. All right, US Imperial, and this is where if you're on your home computer, it'll probably show up US Imperial and something else maybe, but click on US Imperial, scroll all the way to the bottom, it should be alphabetical, T towards the bottom, title blocks, and select the B11x17. Say open, and say okay. All right, click on the plus arrow to see all the sheets. Again, yours should be A101, so I'll change mine back to what yours probably is. And then you need to type in your name, so Mr. Payne, and then name it the utility shed. Again, I've already done this once, that's why it's kind of pre-populating for me. And then the sheet name, let's call it floor plan. All right, we're gonna have more than the floor plan, so maybe we should call it floor and elevation plan. Okay. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to try to drag or put a floor plan on here. So you scroll up in the project browser, and this is just a click and drag operation. So you click on the first floor and drag it out, first floor plan, and you see the black box is huge. It's way too big for our title block. So if you replace it, the floor plan itself is pretty small and would fit, but the outline is way too big. So let's delete that out. What we need to do is a couple things. So go into the first floor plan, and zoom out quite a bit. And you see down here where this, next to the glasses, it's show crop region. That's showing the entire area that will show up when we put it onto a drawing sheet. We don't need all that space. We only need the space immediately around our actual building. So if you click on it, it brings up these tabs you can click and drag. You want to drag them pretty close in, and then zoom in and tighten it up a little bit still. We just don't need to see all that extra blank space. It's just a waste of space. All right, tighten that up a bit. Should be good. And then you don't want to see it anymore, so turn it off. The other thing is 1/8 of an inch. You're going to see if I drag it out right now, it's going to show up really small. 1/8 of an inch being a foot. So if 1/8 of an inch is a foot, it shows up really, really small on the drawing sheet. So we're going to just delete that out. We're going to change the scale factor. So we go to first floor plan. If you click on the scale factor down here in the lower left corner, you can change it from 1/8 of an inch equals a foot to 3/16 of an inch equals a foot. That just makes it a little bit bigger. You'll see the text actually gets smaller, but don't worry about that. It all will show up the same size on the drawing sheet. So now we can drag it over, put it in the upper left corner, shows up relatively large, good enough size for us. All right. So that's the floor plan. It's already dimensioned. We don't have very many dimensions, only 2 dimensions here. So let's go ahead and put some more things. We're going to put a 3D view up in the upper right corner, and then 2 elevation views along the bottom here. So the 3D view, I had already changed mine back to hidden line, and the reason for that is when we try to print this into a PDF, if you have it in any of these other ones, shaded or consistent color, it's going to just take up way too much processing and memory power. Your computer might just not handle it well and shut down, whereas the hidden line will be able to handle that. Same thing as before, we're going to need to crop it down. So show the crop region, crop it down to just around the shed itself. All right. Zoom in, tighten it up a little bit. Turn off the crop region, change the scale to the same 1/3/16 equals a foot, and that should be good enough to put back on the drawing. So just click and drag it out there. All right, that looks pretty good. And same thing, we'll do maybe an east view, which shows the face of the brick wall. So again, same process as before, crop it down. So drag it in close. You'll see these lines extend a little beyond the elevation lines, beyond the crop region, which is fine. Things that you really do want are these texts to show the different floors. So turn off the crop region, adjust the scale factor 3/16 of an inch. Do the same thing for north. That shows one of the sides with the vinyl siding rather than the brick siding. Crop it down. All right, zoom in. It's pretty well done. All right, so turn off the crop region, change the, I'd already done this one, to 3/16, and go back to the sheet. And now you can just drag the east out, and then drag the north out. Okay, and you want to make sure it's all on the sheet, lined up well, appropriate sizing and everything. Because remember, if this was an actual project, this would be the product you actually send to your client. So you definitely want to take your time, make sure it's all looking good. Have consistent scale throughout. They're labeled correctly. Revit does that for us. First floor, 3D, north and east. All right. So for the first. And the last thing we're going to do is create a PDF of this drawing sheet to submit. So to do that, you can select the print icon up here, or it's also under the file menu, print. But the easiest way to get to it is the print icon right up here. Click on that. And by default, it might say something like OneNote or something like that. So we got to change that to Adobe PDF. And then we need to change the properties. So to make sure that our computers can print this out without any issues, we need to try to compress it or make the smallest file size. No security. The size is the 11/17, and that should be okay there. And then wherever you want to save it, so you should probably save it on your USB drive. I'm going to put it in my U drive under my CEA folder, my name. You see I've already printed one out, but I'm just going to call it Utility Shed V1. Click Save, and then you want to make sure you change the settings right here. So click on the Setup, and here we want to make sure we put it on 11/17 size. But the biggest thing here is the quality. Change it to low quality and black lines. That, again, just to try to make it as easy to print as possible, as easy for the computer to deal with this as possible. And that should be good. Say OK. If you want to save it, you can. Whatever you want to save it as. And then we should be able to, if you want to take a preview of it, take a look, see what it looks like. Looks just like what we need. You can click Print. Click OK. You might not get this error message because I already have one, but I'm going to replace the file I already have existing, say OK, and it'll prompt you again for where you want to save it. I'm going to save it here, say yes, overwrite it, and it should load pretty quickly, this kind of stuff. And then once you print it, depending on the settings on your computer, the PDF might pop up. And this is what you'll submit for the end of the version 1.